at him. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about now, given your rise here, and the Clinton folks were worried about you. Along comes this Time magazine story that you and Hillary Clinton actually worked quite closely together with health care back in 1993, and that you were one of the people she sought out. I think you were the ranking member of the House Budget Committee at the time. You were an influential young player in Washington. And that she reached out to you. Now, tell me what happened there, because conservatives are seizing on this to say, aha.
Yeah. No, let me explain to you what happened. We knew Hillary had this big health care plan, and a friend of mine who was a Democrat, I said, why don't we have Hillary come to dinner, and I'll get all the Republicans so that she can hear their concerns, so she just doesn't go forward with what she wants to do, because it's not going to get anywhere. So she came to the dinner, and she was supposed to stay a half hour. I think she stayed like an hour and a half or whatever. And we had our health care experts there and explained to her exactly what her problems were. So I am a believer in dialogue. You know, look,
but your
Neil,
plan, just to be clear, Governor, just to be clear, your plan was a more private market solution, right? I believe at the time. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what she was trying to do wasn't going to work. And I was the Budget Committee chairman when the whole thing blew up under her. And, you know, look, I'm going to always talk to people, Neil, who I have to work with, because at the end of the day, we cannot solve the problems of health care, solve the problems of Social Security, of protecting the border, unless we have at least some bipartisan support, Neil. Remember Reagan working with Tip O'Neill? Did that make him a liberal? I don't know. I don't think so.
All right. This sanctuary city debate, that's very big right now. How do you feel about that? Should we have them? There's an effort in the House, as you know, to stop it. What do you say?
I don't think that these officials should be thumbing their nose at the law. And frankly, as we see, when people ignore the law, some bad things can happen. So I hope they move forward with some of this legislation. I don't know the details of all of it. But at the end of the day, we don't want people who have violated the law to walk away and have no consequence.
So we don't want sanctuary cities, is what you're saying?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't.
Now, this Iran deal separately. There's a big fight as to whether it should go through. The opposition is already there, but the president would likely veto that opposition. There aren't enough votes to override it. He says, Secretary of State Kerry said, that the alternative is war. What do you say?
Well, I think that's such hyperbole. I don't agree. And frankly, the deal's so bad because they're not only going to get a nuclear weapon, but they're going to have a lot of cash to fund these radical groups that want to destroy our friends and hate our way of life. I'm not so sure it's over, Neil. Look, I mean, I'm not sure the votes aren't there to override. We'll see what Chuck Schumer and Ben Cardin and a number of the Democrats want to do.
It's an uphill fight. But let me ask you, if you became president of the United States and we had this deal with Iran, what would a President Kasich do? Rip it up?
Well, we'd have to closely monitor everything that's going on, and if we think they're in violation, we'd have to fight to reimpose the economic sanctions.
But
and the
it would be a done deal. It would already be a done deal. Let's say it's a done deal, right? Then a President Kasich has a chance to either rip it up.
Yeah, but if they violate the agreement, Neil, then you slap the economic sanctions back on. So in the short term, we have to be very aggressive as the world, and frankly, we ought to reach agreement with the world powers right now.
But it would hinge on them violating it, Governor?
Well, you know, we're going to have an agreement, and if they don't violate it, I don't like the agreement.
Right.
So we'd have to see where they are. But if this puts off the development for a while, we'll accept that. But my fear is that they will not reach agreement here. They will violate the agreement. And I think the best course is then to reimpose economic sanctions. And if I could get that done, that's what I would do. I would get our allies together to say, knock this thing off and let's go back to the sanctions until they change. Because we're going to see cash flowing to some of these radical groups, and that's very, very bad. But to say we're going to go to war on the first day, Neil, come on, that's not realistic. It may sound good, but I don't think it's the proper thing to say. No more red lines, Neil.
Understood. Hillary Clinton is about to make a big speech in New York on a tax plan that will have a multi-tiered capital gains tax rate. It will go up, and you will be penalized for selling investments in under a year. I think you know roughly the drill here. What do you think of that?
Terrible idea. I mean, what we really need to do is to do what we did in Ohio, modernize government and get ourselves in a position of where we deregulate and that we cut taxes. And we're business friendly. You know, the next president needs to have people who are business friendly in the cabinet, all throughout the cabinet. We need to shift power out of Washington, empower people where they live, and provide the incentives for businesses to invest in plant and equipment so workers can have the tools to have greater productivity and higher wages. And then the tax code needs to be simpler. It needs to come down at the top, and we need to provide incentives to the working poor at the bottom.
All right. Not bad.
It's another left-wing, redistribution plan on the basis of Hillary.
Governor, thank you very much. And don't do this scriptless thing all the time. I'd love to talk to you more, but I have to get back to my prompter. Governor John Kasich from the fine state of Ohio.
Thank you, Neil.
The latest,
God bless.
The latest presidential